Hello, BookTube. Sorry for my absence over the weekend, but I have some mail, a little bit of mail to maybe make it up to you today. I have a couple of packages and a box, so I thought we'd go through that and see if maybe there's something that's squeal-worthy. Now, the first one is one of these asbestos-lined envelopes that is breaking open. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. See, that is breaking open in a couple of different places. So if I'm not really careful with it, I'm going to have flakes everywhere here that I need to clean up and that I need to prevent the bean from eating. Although she's really good about that. Careful, very careful. Put this down here. There we go. She's really good about that. I've had many dogs where if something fell on the floor, just the other day, a little washing ring, a little metal washing ring, tiny little thing, fell from a shelf. I don't know what it was doing there, but it fell from a shelf onto the floor. I heard it fall, and all of my doggy instincts were straight to panic. Don't want somebody to swallow that. And the bean just ignored it. She really doesn't do that. She doesn't eat anything off the ground. For instance, she doesn't snap up anything like that. And after 15 years of my pointer, Malin, used to do that just compulsively. She knew that it infuriated me, and she did it anyway. It was the only thing that she ever did that she knew contravened my will and just couldn't help herself. And she could find stuff on a bare sidewalk just out of some other dimension. I would be looking down at her sniffing the sidewalk, and I would stare carefully at the concrete, and I would say, okay, as far as the eye can see in either direction, this is clean. And then I would go back to paying attention to my Basset Hound Lucy, and a second later, when I looked back at my pointer at Malin, she would be heavily wolfing something down, her whole face bulging with something the size of a sparrow or something that she'd eaten out of nowhere. Frida doesn't seem to want to do that, and she doesn't go after stuff on the floor either. She has never really been all that interested in playing. Even when she was a little puppy, her idea of play was to rip the skin off people's fingers. And now she doesn't even want to do that. Now she's just friendly. If you cuddle with her and fuss over her until she tells you to stop, then you'll be fine. And so I guess I don't really have to worry about flakes of asbestos hitting the floor. Okay, this first one is Bound Galley. So it's not going to have any information on it at all. No, it doesn't have any information on it at all. This is one of the earliest stages of something that a reviewer can get. This isn't even an ARC. This is, see, it's just, somebody just bound the galleys of this book. This is Kill All Your Darlings by David Bell, who has a long list of books to his credit. Cemetery Girl, Hiding Place, Never Come Back, The Forgotten Girl, and a bunch of others. But this has no information on it at all, and as you can see, this is very preliminary. This is the earliest possible thing. So you've got just the pages, every one of them says, not for redistribution. This is before the ARC. So I'm assuming that this is maybe July, just by the timetable of what I'm looking at here. I would assume this is maybe July, and probably is going to get a big push from Berkeley. If they're doing this, if they're sending this stuff out, this is just nothing at all. This is just the pages on the cover art. If they're doing that, then that means they're gonna do full court press with the ARC, and then another full court press with the finished copy. And this looks like a thriller of some kind, but I'm not going to be able to tell you anything about it because it doesn't. This doesn't even have a dust jacket blurb of any kind. This is just nothing at all. It does give the epigraph, which is in writing you must kill all your darlings. One of the pieces of writing that is most often and most mindlessly repeated on AuthorTube. The quote is here attributed to William Faulkner. It's absolute nonsense, and I've railed against it many times on this channel. That of course you don't kill all your darlings. That writing advice, if you want to call it that, boils down to sure, it's okay for you to cover pages with writing, and it's okay for you to hope and dream that you will become a writer and see your books in bookstores. But don't think for a minute that you can recognize good writing from bad writing, and any writing of your own that strikes you as good, you should immediately delete. Don't even think about it. Just get rid of it. I don't know. Actually, I was gonna say I don't know where that kind of advice comes from. But as I've mentioned on this channel a few times, although it's been years, I do know exactly where that advice comes from. It comes from not in Faulkner's case. It comes from the burgeoning MFA program. What more important piece of advice is a writing instructional program designed to siphon money out of you going to give you than you don't have any idea how to write? Kill everything that looks bad. Your judgment isn't worth anything. We'll tell you what to keep and what not to keep. And you know, it's a sign not that you're getting a whole rant over a book I can't tell you anything about, but it's a sign of how cookie cutter and almost universally bland, for instance, 21st century fiction is, modern contemporary literary fiction. It's a sign of how bland it can be, and not just literary fiction. Has all the markings of a thriller. It's a sign of how bland that is. That probably the ruthless instinct that kill all your darlings tries to inculcate, which is get rid of anything that stands out as in any way inventive, that's probably taken hold in a whole generation of writers. That probably explains why modern contemporary fiction, be it science fiction, mystery, thrillers, literary fiction, is usually so dull. That might explain why. Because you have a whole generation of young writers killing their darlings, so to speak. But this is going to be a thriller of some kind or other. I wish I could tell you more about it, but I don't know anything about it. But in lieu of telling you anything about it, let's read the first page and we'll see what kind of vibe, as the internet puts it, we get. The first chapter is called Connor, and we're told it's set in the present. General doesn't bark when my key hits the lock. That's when I know something is wrong. Those are both standalone paragraphs. Grendel, an 11-year-old beagle mix, still barks at the mailman, the neighbors. Oh, the name is Grendel, not General. Squirrels, cats, anything strangers at all, despite his age and flagging energy. And I can count on him barking with joy when I come in the back door every evening. If not for him, I'd always be greeted by stone-cold silence. Okay. Okay. All right. A little bit odd that the protagonist, I'm assuming Connor, is entering his house by the back door. And also stone cold silence is, of course, a cliche. But let's move on. And that's what I hear tonight. In other words, stone cold silence. Also a one-sentence paragraph. I toss my keys onto the kitchen counter and slip my coat off. Also a one-sentence paragraph. Grendel, everything looks normal. Grendel's food bowl is nearly empty, which means he's eaten while I was out at the library. I usually manage to keep the kitchen clean, mainly because I don't cook. The appliances are here and everything appears to be in order. But something feels wrong. Feels is in italics, and that line is also a standalone paragraph. Without Grendel's barking, the house seems unsettled. That line is also a one-sentence paragraph. Off. That single word, is also a one-sentence paragraph. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 single-sentence paragraphs on one page, on the first page. A chill flash freezes up my spine. A chill going up your spine, I don't care if it's flash or otherwise, is a cliche. I feel that like an intruder in my own home, like I've walked in on something. I move towards the front of the house, stepping carefully. The ancient floorboards squeak, each one sounding like a gunshot. Grendel typically spends his time on the couch when I'm gone. When he hears something outside, he likes to lift his head and look out the picture window. He lets out a series of barks that make him sound much more vicious than he really is. And once that's out of his system, he flops back down as though he's just run 20 miles. By now, I should hear his collar jingling, his nails on the hardwood. That by now I should hear is a one-sentence paragraph. He's an old dog, I tell myself. Old dogs don't live forever. Another one-sentence paragraph, and the narrator, Connor, jumping from not hearing his dog barking to his dog being dead. Downright strange. Grendel, that's him asking again. When I reach the entrance to the living room, I freeze in place. Is that the second freezing that we've done? Your spine flash froze, and now you are freezing in place, but still only 4 sentences away from each other. Everything is where it's supposed to be. The lamp I always leave on is on. Main character comes in his house through the back door, leaves his lamp on during the day. The furniture is arranged the way it's been for years. Nothing is disturbed, nothing is broken. And Grendel sits on the floor, his tail flopping back and forth when he sees me. that Anne Grendel is a single sentence. That when I reach the entrance to the living room is a single sentence. Everything is where it's supposed to be, except that someone is sitting in the recliner, legs crossed, hands gently scratching Grendel between the ears. That's also a single sentence. And so far in this opening page, it's the only line that we've read that should be a single sentence, because the single sentences have a point, right? They do something dramatically. If you have given me 31 sentences, and out of those 31 sentences, 27 have been single sentence paragraphs, then you have wasted that point. You're squandering that effect. Hello, she says. My mind is slower than my body. My body reacts instantly. My muscles tense, my hands clench, my knees bend into a defensive crouch, and adrenaline shoots through me like rocket fuel. But my mind is still trying to make sense of this scene before me. A young woman with long hair dyed an unnatural shade of red sits in my recliner petting my dog. And she greets me like she's supposed to be there, like I've asked her to wait for me to come home this evening. She wears a red coat, black jeans, and heavy boots, and her face is mostly obscured by large owl-like glasses. Who the hell are you? You need to get out of here. The woman lifts her hands from Grendel's head and holds it up, cutting off my words. Okay, all right. I had glanced at it again, and that is disastrous. That is just disastrous. The momentary thought I had, the momentary confusion that the writer's writing caused me. The woman lifts her hand from Grendel's head and holds it up. That momentary confusion is catastrophic. Just catastrophic. You're either going to be horrified and then mad at the author that you shouldn't have been, or you're going to start to laugh in the middle of a tense scene at the beginning of a thriller. Because it is her hand she's holding up, not Grendel's head. And the only reason that moment of confusion happened is because the author didn't take a fraction of a second to rewrite the line in observance of the rules of English grammar, which say that a pronoun takes as its antecedent the last noun. The last noun before you get to it is the it. And that is not the case here. The case here, the it that's being held up is not Grendel's head. It's her hand. And a fraction of a second rewrites the sentence so that the reader doesn't go through that little roller coaster ride. Grendel bounds over, sniffs my shoes. Okay, if he's old enough to be that tired, then he doesn't bound over, but that's all right. He would have barked when she first came in, because he always barks the first time he meets someone. Then he gets used to them. He looks happy to see me. You know who I am, Connor, she says. And once you remember who I am, I think you're going to know why I'm here. I don't know who you are, I say, but I am going to call the police if you don't get out. If you don't take anything, and if you didn't take anything and didn't hurt my dog, you can just leave and I won't press charges. She ignores my threat. With a slow theatricality, she lifts the glasses off her face and folds them, placing them carefully in her lap. She blinks a couple of times but remains quiet. If you want food, you can take it, or money. I'll give it to you, but you have to go. Okay. All right. I was with Connor a little bit up until this. I don't think that his reactions are particularly normal for the situation. I know it's a very weird situation, but I don't think he would, under any circumstances, say, "I'm happy to hand you some food if it'll make you leave." I think in a situation like this, like the one that's described here, which of course is extremely outre. It's a fictional thing, not a real world thing. But in a situation like this, I think overwhelmingly the man's reaction would be to seize physically the intruder. Especially if it's a woman. Well, anyway, let's keep going. Connor, she says. Needless to say, it's a single word paragraph. And then I finally see it. Her face is suddenly familiar. The eyes are bright blue. The shape of her face, thinner, much thinner, but recognizable. She must realize that I'm starting to really see her because she smiles knowingly, like a chess master who's just outfoxed a lesser opponent. No, I say. No, you're not supposed to. I mean, you're supposed to be. She lifts her eyebrows. You mean I'm supposed to be dead? Is that it? I'm supposed to be dead? Not dead, I say, my voice lowered. Not exactly dead. But she's nodding. Oh, yes, I'm supposed to be dead. I'm supposed to be written off, forgotten, erased, tossed into a ditch or a river or a forest, my bones scattered to the winds and slowly returning to the earth, dust to dust and all that. Isn't that where I'm supposed to be? Yes, I say. That's what we all thought. I'm glad that's not true, but this is all very disconcerting. You're here. She leans forward and reaches behind her. She brings out a familiar-looking object and holds it up between us. She looks like she's on television, presenting something to the viewing audience. Isn't this what we need to talk about, Connor? It's not my book. The book that was published today by a major New York publisher. The one that I was at the library reading from and signing. The one that represents a dream come true for me. I don't answer her question. I come all the way into the room and sit on the couch across from Madeline O'Brien. I sit across from my former student, the young woman who disappeared almost 2 years ago, just before she was supposed to graduate. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it's not my book. It is his book. She is presenting him with a copy of his book. The book that was published today by a major New York publisher. Okay, so that's how Kill All Your Darlings starts. It starts with, obviously, what is going to be a literary thriller. The book is obviously going to have something important to do with the storyline. Maybe the author of the book, Connor, tells the story of Madeline's disappearance in the comfortable assertion that she is disappeared, that she's gone, only now she's back. So does she suspect that he was part of what made her disappear? Does she have something to hold over him? She certainly doesn't sound friendly. One way or another, a fairly intriguing opening. I have my technical problems with it, but as with any plot-driven thriller, this is obviously going to be a plot-driven thriller. And you've got Pages in the Wind there, and Kill All Your Darlings, and the Faulkner epigraph. Strongly, and the mention of a book right at the beginning of the story. Probably this is going to be a literary-oriented thriller of some kind. And with plot-driven thrillers of some kind, or plot-driven genre fiction of any kind, the kinds of objections that I encountered in that first chapter could be rolled over. They could be mowed over by the strength of the book, just in general, right? I mean, you all know this, right? If you read Lee Child, for instance, the analytical part of your brain, the critical part of your brain, knows exactly the kinds of corners that he's cutting to get his prose to do what he wants it to do. And isolated and alone, each one on an examining table, they aren't defensible, like a lot of the things that we've seen in that first chapter. But the momentum of the book is designed to counteract that, and it could happen here. It could very well happen here. I'm going to have to check the date on this. I think it's probably July. Bean, what are you doing? What are you doing? Huh? What are you chewing at? We had a major trimming session. I don't know if you can tell. We had a major trimming session yesterday. Her whole body, her rear end, which becomes the Amazon jungle if I don't take care of it, and also her little ears. Emphasis on the little. Her ears are actually very tiny, and they have a propensity to just tuft out with hair. so when I trim the ears back, the thing is, if you're holding the ear in your hand, then you easily know what the actual outline of the flesh is. And it makes her more expressive. Frida does most of her facial expressions with her ears. So a lot of language happens with those ears, so it's nice to see them. But anyway, now we've got a second package. That first one took us a little long. When you get me analyzing a book, that takes a little long. So let's see what this next one is. It's in a priority mail envelope, so it might not be from a publisher. Is there a note? Is there a note? Oh my God, no, there's no note. One of you has misbehaved. One of you has misbehaved gloriously. I have mentioned many times on this channel Norton Critical Editions. I don't have one, aside from this one, that's within our arm's reach. Norton Critical Editions give you the text of a book at the beginning of the book, and then critical apparatus at the back. So, Bean, cut it out. Any literary antecedents, any historical origins for the work under consideration, you'll get original critical response to an older work. You'll get later literary criticism response and whatnot. They're invaluable as teaching tools. They're fantastic for a classroom. But they're also fantastic for a general reader who just wants to know a little bit more than the bald text. I love them. I am now deeply coveting a brand new Norton Critical Edition. I have been asking Norton, all sorts of people at Norton, to get me a copy. Norton Critical Edition is one of their latest ones. Is a big fat Tale of Genji in the Dennis Washburn translation with a cover blurb by me, by name. Needless to say, that is a Norton Critical Edition that I really, really want. I don't have it yet, but I really want it. But over the years, when I've done library tours on this channel, I've said that another Norton Critical Edition that I deeply, deeply covet is the Norton Critical Edition of Les Morts d'Arthur by Thomas Mallory. A really nice thing that I saw once upon a time at the Book Barn in Niantic, Connecticut. I popped it right into my tote bag. You carry tote bags around. You carry multiple tote bags at the Book Barn in Niantic, Connecticut, because you're going to fill them all. And I popped it right into the tote bag, and it was only later that I thought to look at it, and it was so heavily colored with those neon yellow highlighters that I knew I wouldn't be able to use it. So I had to put it back. I never do that at the Book Barn. One of you sent it to me. This is a brand new copy of the Norton Critical Les Morts d'Arthur. How incredible. How incredible. Well, okay, the guilty party's name is on the envelope, so I will be sending a thankful note. This is amazing. Just amazing. Oh, that just makes my day. Okay, now we'll do the box. Frida, will you cut it out, baby? What is the matter? Now we'll do the box, and then I'm going to turn the camera off and glom all over my new Les Morts d'Arthur. I have I think it's an Everyman Library paperback of Les Morts d'Arthur, and I don't need it anymore if I have this one. Although it is a classic, and I do love it, so maybe I could just have both. So let's see what this next one is. We have an invoice that we don't need, and then it's just one book in a box. Oh, fantastic. Okay. It's just one book in a box. It's not going to come with any publicity sheet, but this is by Patricia Sullivan, and this is Justice Rising, Robert Kennedy's America in Black and White. And there he is. This is, let's see here. History, race, and politics converged in the 1960s in ways that indelibly changed America. In this landmark reconsideration of Robert Kennedy's life and legacy, Patricia Sullivan draws on government files, personal papers, and oral interviews to reveal how he grasped the moment to emerge as a transformational leader. When civil rights protests broke out across the South, John F. Kennedy's young Attorney General confronted escalating demands for racial justice. What began as a political problem soon became a moral one. In the face of vehement pushback from Southern Democrats bent on massive resistance, Kennedy put the weight of the federal government behind school desegregation and voter registration. His youthful energy, moral vision, and capacity to lead created a momentum for change. He helped shape the 1964 Civil Rights Act, reaching out to prominent Republicans for support, but he knew no law could end racism. When the Watts uprisings brought calls for more aggressive policing, he pushed back, pointing to the root causes of urban unrest: entrenched poverty, substandard schools, and a total lack of job opportunities. He strongly opposed the military buildup in Vietnam, but nothing was more important to him than what he called the revolution within our gates, the struggle of the American Negro to full equality and full freedom. On the night of Martin Luther King's assassination, Kennedy's anguished appeal captured the hopes of a turbulent decade. Quote, "In this difficult time for the United States, it is perhaps well to ask what kind of nation we are and what direction we want to move in. It is a question that remains urgent and unanswered." Okay, so the author is, she's the author of Lift Every Voice, the NAACP and the Making of the Civil Rights Movement, Days of Hope, Race and Democracy in the New Deal Era, and Freedom Writer, Virginia Foster Durer, Letters from the Civil Rights Years. And she's a professor of history at the University of South Carolina. And this is the Belknap Press of Harvard University Press. I don't know when this is out. I believe it's a June release, but I don't have any information on it. It is a landmark reconsideration of Robert Kennedy's life and legacy. As a landmark reconsideration, if I had been the cover copywriter, I would not have said that, because of course this has been considered many, many times, and I don't think that Patricia Sullivan is going to come to any radically different general conclusions than a lot of them, say, the last 5 books on the subject have done. I wouldn't have said reconsideration, but still, I haven't read this. I didn't have the advance copy, and I really want to read it. I don't think that I am on any kind of docket to review this, but I will review it anyway. I'll review it myself. Fantastic. All right, well, that's the mail. Only 3 books, but not a bad trio. So we have Justice Rising, a new Bobby Kennedy book. We have the Norton Critical Edition of Mallory's Les Morts d'Arthur, fantastic and almost certainly guaranteed to occasion reread. That's almost certainly going to happen. This is the version of this book that I most want, until we reach that magical era where I can format an ideal edition myself. I know what that ideal edition would be. It would be the text and the critical apparatus of this Norton Critical Edition, but it would be in a hardcover with decal edges and French flaps for the dust jacket, and it would have the illustrations, the Wyeth illustrations for the Boy's King Arthur from the old Scribner Illustrated Classics line. If I could mix and match, that's what I would do. But in the meantime, I'll take this, absolutely. And then Kill All Your Darlings by David Bell, a book-related thriller that's coming out down the line, I would assume. Since I'm getting a bound galley, I would assume that we have a ways to go. I'll have to find out. I'll have to get dates on a couple of these things. But that's the mail. I cannot thank the sender of the Norton Critical Mallory enough. I will email the sender and make thank yous in private. But in the meantime, that's the mail, and I will wrap this up for now. But I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.